So my name is Jesse. I'm with ROI Safety Services, and we are here to present job hazard analysis. And the reason why I chose this particular topic, there is nothing in my personal opinion that can help really get a company in a place of being in compliance and having a safe environment like a job hazard analysis. You can have all the programs in the world, but if you don't have a job hazard analysis, and we're going to go into why and how effective they are, your systems aren't going to work well. They're just smoke and mirrors, really. So this is a process that I think is the single most effective way of getting a workplace into compliance in so many ways, whether it be a large business or just a few people working in a print shop. It could be that. It literally is that simple. So I will get into the subject matter. Does anybody have any questions or any specific issues that they would like to discuss? I'm going to lower everybody's hands right now. And if you have anything that you'd like for me to address, now's the time to raise your hand. I'll give you the ability to communicate. And if you have anything that you'd like to discuss, raise your hand now and I'll unmute you. If nobody's hands comes up, I will go right into the material. Okay. So you guys don't have any questions. All righty. So we will get started. I'm going to switch screens, and what I would like to know is everybody sees the large screen, right? Everybody raise their hand if you can see the large screen. That helps me understand what you're seeing. Okay, because I have a split screen and sometimes it will go to the other one. Okay, so let's get into the business of job hazard analysis. And these are actually pretty fun. We do these quite often. But first of all, let me get into who we are. ROI Safety Services, of course, is return on investment. There's a reason why we have that name, return on investment. And that is because we are 100% committed to giving each of our clients a return. And that return is, we'll get into that, we are a full service safety and environmental compliance firm. So we specialize in site specific safety and environmental training. That's the deliverable. We focus on providing each client with tools to meet and exceed all regulatory requirements. That's the return on investment, with the primary objective of educating, supporting each person we work with. And our ultimate goal is zero injuries. So this is my commitment to you, and this is what we stand for as a company. This is who we are. And so our objective today is to discuss the basic elements of a job hazard analysis. You may hear them referred to as job safety analysis, JSAs, JHAs, but I call them job hazard analysis. I've been doing that for years, but they're the same. They're synonymous. So identify typical hazards in the workplace, and then review various techniques that can be used to identify. What am I looking for? What hazards am I looking for? Hazards in the workplace. So that's the key deliverable. And a JHA is simple technique that focuses on a task, something that one of your employees or yourself is doing. What are you doing? It could be so simple as sweeping. It focuses on the relationship between the worker, the task being performed, the tools being used, and the working environment. After uncontrolled hazards are identified, preventive action controls are put into place to eliminate the hazard, get rid of the risk. That is our goal, is to remove these risks and make a safe environment for each employee. So what is the benefit? What is the return on investment for implementing a job hazard analysis? Well, it should be obvious, right? We will eliminate fatalities, injuries, and it ensures that workers have the training and equipment and supplies to do their job safe. It is a amazing tool to put into any type of working environment to identify risk, to look at hazards, that you can mitigate or eliminate 100%, or identify different types of doing something, doing a certain process. And the last resort, of course, is job or personal protection equipment. We'll get into that. So it will help you develop your accident prevention plan. And that is where we want to be camping out, is in prevention. Okay. Most places, I could probably say all places that I visit, it's reactive. Everything in terms of production environment is typically reactive. Okay, the first step is, oh, put on PPE, that'll solve everything. But that's not the approach we want to take. We do not recommend that. So hazard awareness is accepting a risk of a hazard is not the same as eliminating or controlling a hazard. Okay, so accepting a risk or hazard is not the same as eliminating it. When conducting a JHA, you may need to take a fresh look at the way things are done at your workplace. And I encourage you, if this is your business, or you're new to this business, or whatever role you're in, this will, I guarantee, will give you a new perspective on how you guys are doing whatever processes you're doing. Even though you may hear, we've been doing this for 20 years, and I hear that all the time, it doesn't mean hazards don't exist. It doesn't mean that. It just means that they're very comfortable working in this environment, and they haven't, or maybe they have lost a finger or two. I don't know. But it doesn't mean there's no hazard. You should take a comprehensive look at all possible hazards with an open mind. And I encourage each of you, if you've been in the business for 20 years, 50 years, or just a year, this will reap benefits if you implement this in your working environment. I promise you that. So JHA is performing a job hazard analysis is one of the best methods for safe work procedures for equipment that you're operating. It's going to help you look at the equipment you're using. It's going to help you evaluate every step and every risk within that step that you or your employees are facing and how to mitigate that risk. The JHA can also be used to train employees. This is, guys, this is huge right now. This is a huge, huge benefit. I can't tell you any of my clients right now that do not have enough employees right now. It is an epidemic across the country. We don't have enough people. And then when we get people in, they're not prepared. They don't want to work, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of turnover. You get a lot of people in, you get a lot of people out. This process will give you the tool to train those folks in a much more efficient way, because you're documenting the process of, for example, loading and unloading a truck. You know, that seems to be pretty simple, but you know, there's some things that you need to look at. There's some risks that you need to mitigate. So having a JHA for loading and unloading freight would be a wonderful training device for any new hires. And I have quite a few clients that have high turnover, and they'll just get them in, get the new individual in, and then they would go over all their JHAs with them, all of their procedures with them. And then, you know, they would typically spend half a morning with them, minimize the amount of time, because more than likely half of them are going to be gone at the end of the day or the end of the month or end of the week. So having a really good JHA program will give you the tools to provide training for your folks. A JHA team is a good idea. This is a really good idea in terms of getting the entire organization engaged in this process, because you're going to get different perspectives, different points of view. But without a doubt, we absolutely need supervisors. We need frontline employees. Safety professionals are always a benefit, and engineers are absolutely a positive asset to every team. So if you can get a crew like this together to do these JHAs, it would be so much easier to get things done. So prioritizing these JHAs. So one of the things that I look at as a safety professional, really the first thing I look at is I want to see your OSHA 300 log. I want to see what kind of injuries you've had. Then I want to look at what type of injuries they are. And then trickle down, if there's been fatalities, boom, we're going to be right on that process right away. We want to analyze it, evaluate it, take video, pictures, interview people, find out everything about this equipment. There's more than likely going to be more than one job hazard analysis in terms of if there's significant risk involved. Make it, each JHA should be written, but it should be very, very simple. And we're going to show you a couple of them. These JHAs they are not programs. They are not written procedures. They are simple step-by-step instruction on how to do a task. So that needs to be clear. And they're very simple. I'm going to say that several times, but you need to simplify it, and we'll get into why. So identify the job, break that job down into super simple detail. Identify the hazards found in each step of that job. Look for ways to eliminate or control these hazards. Eliminate a hazard or install controls to mitigate that hazard. Keep a record of hazards identified and the steps taken to eliminate that hazard. That's your record. That's your training record. And then periodically assess each of these job hazard analysis. So get employees involved, review your accident history. Super important. And it's also good to look at if you're say you're in the plating industry and you have you're in a membership with other plating facilities and you guys can use each other as a resource. It's good to communicate what others have done in terms of certain processes they may have. Like if you're a hard anodizer or chrome or whatever, or painting or any process like that, you could share information with those other companies. That is a huge benefit. But conduct any kind of preliminary job review, list and rank priorities based on the hazards, based on injuries, risk, and then outline the steps. Get employees involved at every level because they're the ones who are going to be driving this because they're the ones doing it. They're the ones who are actually doing it. What we want to do is avoid telling our employees how to do it when they're already doing it a certain way. Ask them how they do it. How are you doing this? Can I observe you? Even though you think it might not be the best way, hold back, observe, video, picture, whatever the case may be, but make sure you get what they're doing first and then get them enrolled in what you're doing and then get their buy-in or input on how to do a certain task. Even if it's not the safest way, at least you're getting them enrolled in your program rather than telling them what to do, because when you're not looking, guess what they're going to do? What they've been doing for however long. I assure you that, guys. I assure you that. They will only do it when you're around. And the list can go on as to what they're doing. It could be so many different things. We service aerospace to chemical manufacturing to distribution, you name it. We are in probably biotech, every kind of industry in at least in across the country, really. So we see all kinds of different tasks. So we want you to make sure that you implement these steps and you get employee buy-in. So outline the steps, watch the employee, just what I just said, look at them, watch them, videotape them, take pictures, ask them a ton of questions. It's best to have them take ownership of this process and work with you. They should be telling you what they're doing. You should be documenting it and collaborating with them back and forth. This is my personal opinion on how to get this done properly, because the employees are the ones that are going to be doing it. They're the ones who have the most impact on how a job gets done. And here's an example. If you have a JHA and you have too much detail, get a ladder from the storage, get new light bulb from storage, carry ladder, okay, too much detail. You want to make it super simple, just real big steps. Step one, get the ladder from the garage. Too little information, get a ladder, change bulb, put ladder away, okay, not enough. Right amount of information, get ladder and new light bulb, turn light switch off, place ladder under light. See how it's identifying every step using ladder, change bulb, put ladder back in storage. You're just outlining the basic steps of getting that function done. Now, you may have jobs that are very detailed, like some chemical blending, some formulations that you're making, and you'll really need to focus on each step. Pour 10 gallons of HCl, pour 10 gallons of, whatever product, ink or whatever. You may need to break it down into that simple of, kind of like cooking, and breaking it down into each step. You may or may not need to do that. It depends on the risk of the chemical. So there's lots of variables that you can look at here, but what we want to do is really identify the big steps. So review the job steps with the employee to make sure that you have not omitted anything, and you will. The first round is always the one that you're like, oh, I forgot this step, I forgot that step, and then share it with several employees is what I find to be the most valuable. And different shifts, believe it or not, different shifts do things differently. They do. And include the employee in all phases of the analysis, from reviewing the job steps and procedure to discussing uncontrolled hazards. And what do they recommend? The solutions are almost always going to be found within the operators. They probably have thought about how to mitigate certain hazards or how to do certain steps for years. So they're the greatest resource when it comes to mitigating. And then identifying the hazards. The job hazard analysis is an exercise to detect work. Your goal is to discover what can go wrong. What are the risks here? What are the consequences? How likely is that hazard? How likely will that hazard occur? How could it happen? That's a good one. What could possibly happen? What could go wrong? What are other contributing factors? One area that I would challenge everybody to look at is ergonomics. Ergonomics is kind of a wild card, because you really don't know when that's going to happen. You really don't know, or you can't anticipate when an individual will come up with a work-related strain or sprain or a ergonomic issue. It's one of those things that it's very unique to each individual employee. But what we can do is we could put things in place like a mat or chairs or certain types of ergonomic pieces of equipment that will help. So common hazards in the workplace. So we want to look for stressors, chemicals, electrical, mechanical, ergonomics, like I mentioned. Look for the obvious things, anything that's toxic, anything that that's loud. Loud noises are huge. Shock, anything that could cause strain or sprain, any of these things that can cause an injury, I would look at them. Radiation, environment, slip, trips, and falls. These are some things that we need to look at. So the hierarchy of control, and this is how we recommend each of you look at the risk. So the first thing we want to do, if we can eliminate the hazard, that's the number one thing we want to do. Eliminate the hazard, remove it or reduce it, substitute it. So if you're using nitric acid and you can use something that's less corrosive or toxic, use something less. If you can use something that's environmentally friendly, use that. Engineering controls are typically where most of our clients start off, but usually we always end up in PPE anyways, right? So if you can implement engineering controls, that's always a good idea. Signs, administrative control, those are things that may work, but they're not always effective. And then, of course, this is where most people end up in personal protection equipment. And I'm not saying that's the worst. It's just the easiest, to be honest. Most companies, we'll just put on PPE. We don't need to put a machine guard on that for whatever reason. And that seems to be where a lot of people hang out. I don't recommend that. I recommend eliminating the hazard, using some kind of substitute, get into the engineering controls first. If you're designing a process, look at that first. So those are the recommendations for eliminating the hazard. And then controlling the hazard. The most effective controls are engineering controls that physically change a machine that will eliminate any kind of risk. The more reliable or less likely a hazard control can be circumvented, the better. If this is not feasible, administrative controls may be appropriate. This may involve changing how employees do their job. For example, if you're working around a toxic chemical, you may minimize the amount of time you spend in that area. If it's noisy, same thing. Now, engineering controls include eliminating the hazard or minimizing it, substituting it, isolation, or just removal or redirection of hazards such as noise, exhaust, and that sort of thing. Administrative controls, this is where a lot of people camp out on. They think a written procedure will help, and they do, but they can be easily overlooked or bypassed, or forgotten or whatever. Buddy system is a good idea. Of course, training. We do believe training is a part of minimizing the risk, but we can't always rely on that. PPE is where most everybody ends up, and that's putting on safety glasses, harnesses. But the problem is we have to rely on the employee. If you're a business owner or a manager, do you really want to rely on an employee to wear their PPE? And if they don't, it could lead to a significant injury. I don't like that, but I know it's where most people end up because it's not as expensive, it's easier, it's just short term, right? And then, 10 years later, you're still doing the same thing. So we want to make sure that you guys at least understand the risk, okay? Nobody can say, I didn't know. We don't want to be there, okay? Ignorance is no excuse for the law. OSHA expects you as a manager, a business owner, whatever brings you to this seminar, you now must be responsible for your employees' safety. You are responsible for their safety. So we want you to have the tools to do that. Okay, here's a very simple JHA. If you like, I can give you guys a copy, email me, and I'll send you a copy of something very, very simple. So just write down the date, who's involved, write down the job, how people get hurt, what causes them to get hurt, what safe practices are you going to put in place, and what can you do to mitigate this problem in the future? So any questions? Does anybody have any questions? So raise your hand if you have any questions. Good morning. How are you? Pratap? Can you hear me? You got to unmute. Does anybody have any questions? Raise your hand if you guys have any questions.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. How's it going, man?
Okay. I was just wondering, it's possible for you to send us the presentation?
Let me think about it. I'm going to put it on our free webinar, but I probably won't be sending no presentations.
Okay, yeah, if it's possible for us to download the presentation, that'll be good.
Yeah, you'll have that later on.
Okay, yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, no problem. But anyways, if any of you guys have any questions, just raise your hand. We are a full service compliance group. If you have a need for us to come out and do these JHAs at your site, I always recommend that. Most of us don't have the time to do this. So if you guys have a need, give me a call. I'd be more than happy to schedule some time to visit your facility and do a JHA. And here's the most important part is we'll train your folks and do them with you at your site so that you guys can run with it and manage these in-house. I went to a client and they were a nitric acid distributor. So they bought acid, distributed it out to these tankers. Every single person that walked in that front gate had to do a JHA. And I'm like, this is kind of weird, but it wasn't. We walked through the process. I, as a contractor, did a JHA. What are you here for? I'm here for training. What is your hazard? I don't have many hazards. I'm going to be in the office, but yeah, I need to know where to evacuate. Very simple, but it was a JHA, and I thought that was a great idea. You can use JHAs for many different functions. So this is scheduled for 30 minutes. If you guys would have any questions or concerns, give me a call. I will give you my number. It's 714-520-5200. 1608. If any of you guys have any questions, give me a call. I'll be around. And if you have any concerns or comments, I'd be happy to hear them. And I appreciate everybody's time today. And you guys have a wonderful Monday morning, or wherever you're from, wherever you're at. It's still Monday morning here. See you guys later. Oh, you guys, I got a call. Hey.
Yeah, just a quick question. Can you repeat that telephone number again?
Yeah, 714-520-1608.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. For Tap, you got a call or you got a question?
No, that's the question I had. Thank you.
All right, cool. Any other questions? You have a question?
No.
All right, guys, I'm gonna download the video and put it up online. Thank you.